Chinese audience would go to see an American film.
From TV to movie to reality to
from Wanda Group and Alibaba.
怎么样在竞争中去生存
creative team to China.
And there's that strong anchor to China.
Hello everybody, welcome to Hollywood Meets China, your favorite meeting about people who work both in China and the Hollywood entertainment industry. Today we are really glad to welcome Terence Chang, a Hong Kong and American film producer and a veteran figure of US-China co-production movies. Terence, you produced Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, also Mission Impossible 2 with Tom Cruise, and Red Cliff, directed by John Woo. You started to study film at the New York University and used to work for the Golden Harvest Film Studio in Hong Kong before launching your own company and many other companies so far. How did you end up creating your own company, and what was your first expectation by doing it?
For a long time, I was partnering with director John Woo, and we made films in Hong Kong, in Hollywood, and then in China. But the last picture that we did, it's called A Crossing. It's not an action film. There are tons of action in it, but it's not an action film. Did not perform well, and then we decided to part ways, and after 30 years, and so I need to work with more people, more directors, and so I started this new company. Actually, two companies. One based in Hong Kong, one based in Beijing, to produce more films. So I ended up, making 4 films last year.
And your last one is Uchida Entertainment, right? Yeah. And in June 2017, you officiated at the Shanghai Film Festival the launch of a new branch in your company, Uchida, which includes talent management, casting and production services. So you are today one of the biggest producers in China, but you are also a distributor and a talent manager. How do you juggle these several aspects of this new venture?
I am, the company was established a year ago in 2016, in June in Shanghai, but because I have to do more films in China, so I need a Chinese company to make all those movies, and so but my partner Amanda Yang, she's a veteran talent manager, and so she's very unique. She's good in an area that I'm not good at, so so that's talent management. So that's how it started.
In recent years, Chinese capital and the expanding market has played one of the key roles in Hollywood. How do you explain this increase of Chinese investors in Hollywood and also the US-China co-production movies in Hollywood so far?
In the past several years, all of a sudden, China has a lot of money. And for some reason, first of all, the government encouraged, like cultural activities, and movie making is one of them. And on the other hand, people think that getting into the film business is very, very glamorous, very sexy, and so they all wanted to invest in films. The Hollywood films, despite the quota, the 36 picture share revenue quota, did perform very well in China, and so they all want to get their hands onto American films. And as I saw it, there are two ways of getting involved with American films. One is to simply buy the company, like Wanda's bought Legendary Pictures, or they invest in a slate of films, and then they can invest in films individually, they invest in Transformers 3 or 4 or something like that, and put a Chinese star in it, and that would work too. But those are not co-productions. Those are pictures those are Hollywood pictures that perform well in China. But for co-productions, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to satisfy a lot of requirements from the quota, and so the most difficult part is, I guess, finding the right material that works for both audiences. That's the most difficult, the most challenging
and
part.
China, yeah.
Yes,
I see.
Exactly.
Great. For the directors or producers here in Hollywood who would like to collaborate on Chinese movies but don't know anything about it, could you tell us more about it? What's the traditional process to finance a movie in China? And what do you think are the major differences between US and China production processes?
I think for any American producers wanting to get involved with the Chinese film industry, first of all, they have to do the research. They have to find out whether those people are reliable. There are people with money, but sometimes they would back out from a contract, or they have very naive thinking of how Hollywood was like. And so, for instance, I recently ran into a film producer. She's backed by one of the provinces, very rich. They have a lot of money, but they said, they got two of my friends here, Hollywood producers involved. They have no script now. Just last week, they have no script. They wanted to start the movie in September. I said, that's not possible. And they said, okay, we fly an American writer to China and we work together, and for a week, and then we have a script. I said, no, that's not the way it works. But they have no idea how to properly make a movie, and at the same time they have they said, one of her people said, I really like that cousin in Downton Abbey. She's referring to Dan Stevens. Oh, but we must get him, But I said, your budget is only $14 million, and you expecting to get Dan Stevens for a small part. I mean, come on, be realistic. Those are the kind of things that people have no idea what they were thinking. For any American producers wanting to collaborate with China, I think they gotta do a lot of research. They actually gotta fly to China, especially during the film festival periods. I think that's very helpful, and talk to various people, or ask the China Film Co-Production Company. This is the official co-production company in China, to introduce people to them. I think it's much safer that way.
And could you tell us, how did you team up with Amanda Young, which is a talent manager in China, and who is now your partner in Uchida Entertainment?
I've known her for a long time, Amanda. She used to work with Zhang Ziyi, the Chinese actress, and I really got to work together because I did a film in New York City last year called Love is a Broadway Hit, totally in New York, and I need some casting. So she said she could help me, and she started with casting the Chinese leads, and we talk about product placement, and then we got along really well, and so we thought, okay, and this is my situation. I'm on my own, and producing films, and so she said, oh, maybe we should work together because getting actors are so difficult in China right now.
Could you tell us more about your future projects?
Well, initially we thought that we should create a company that do proper casting, and in China, the assistant directors used to do the casting, and then sometimes it's not very organized, and there's might be corruption involved. And so this is not the right way to do things. Like in America, casting is a very big deal. So I thought we should do it properly, and so we started with casting, and we not only my films but all the other films and television projects that Lucida's been casting in the past year. But then at the same time, we met some interesting actors, and so we decided to do talent management as well. And then we signed a couple of people, and But we also signed a couple more people since 2 weeks ago in Shanghai. We signed more people.
Could you tell us some names or?
There's a very, very good actor called, you probably won't have heard of him, called Wang Chuanjun. He's a very, very good actor. He started on doing a television series, and now he's a movie actor. You know, he's a serious actor. And there's another young guy, an idol, called Johnny Huang, Huang Jingyu, and he's very, very popular right now. And you know, I hope he will also be a very good actor, you know, later on. And then there's a couple of other people that we also signed. Oh, you did ask about the ways of working. I mean, it's the same. You know, movie making. The technical part of movie making is just the same everywhere in the world. I mean, I shot all over the world, and it's the same everywhere. In China, 10 years ago, the industry was kind of new, and so it was not very developed at that time. But now, you know, since then we have very, very good sound stages. We have very good post-production houses. We have very good visual effects houses, and so it's really coming along, and so it's no different than anywhere.
For American people who would like to collaborate in Chinese, it must be really. What about the finance to finance a movie in China? There is some specific rules, or as here in the US, for example, or it's really free, or how do you navigate?
I only work with people with good reputation and people who are, you know, either big distributors, and you know, I work with people who are reliable, basically. But sometimes I'm being very cautious, you know. But yeah, you have to be really, really careful.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. You are currently about to board a new martial arts thriller, The Invisible Guard, which is your third one, directed by Yuan Wu-ping, including the choreographer of The Grandmaster and Kill Bill. Could you tell us more about this movie, and how did you finance it, and which market is your first goal?
I am only an executive producer on The Invisible Guard. This is a very big IP and intellectual property in China, because it was the origin is an animated web series, and it was extremely popular. Got like billions of hits, and so the investor of my new company, Uchida, is also the investor of that animated company, and so they kind of like wanted me to help get this movie made, and that IP was first an animated series, became a web series, and now a television show, and hopefully it will be a very big movie, next year. So it's totally financed.
I see. You have a huge understanding of the international market, and we know Uchida is on its way to creating a Chinese film production company with Hollywood standards. Is it one of your goals to produce more English language movies, or do you still want to focus on Chinese language ones? And could you please tell us something about your future projects for this upcoming year?
I think language is not one of my major concerns. I can certainly do English language films or Chinese language films, or somewhere in between. That's not an issue for me. The more interesting thing is the story. The story got to attract me. And I got to feel for the story and the characters. That's the most important thing. For instance, a film that I shot entirely in Europe last year called Adventurous, with Jean Reno and Andy Lau, and it's 1/3 in English and 2/3 in Chinese, because that's how people talk, in the native language, and you cannot have a French policeman, speaking in Chinese. That's not realistic.
Of course.
Right?
Jean Reno is a French actor, and he speaks English in the movie,
yes,
right?
Yeah. exactly.
How do you feel about the future of the entertainment industry in both China and the US co-production in Hollywood?
I think there's a trend which is like I make films in Hollywood about more than 10 years ago. The kind of films I made 10 years ago they cost maybe $100 million. If I want to make the same kind of film, I can only spend 20 million or 25 million, depending on the actor, because times have changed. Unless it's based on an IP, like if it's a DC comic hero or Marvel comics hero, or an IP that people are familiar with, the Beauty and the Beast, Tarzan, the same thing, same thing in China. You got to create an IP. It became very popular on it's a web series or a television series, it doesn't matter, or a book became very popular, and then you made it into something else, So I think but that sometimes those kind of films are, for me, I'm not your typical audience. It's kind of boring.
I think too. There is many IP.
There are a lot of very good movies made in China and in America. They are low-budget independent films, and I really find those films really, really interesting.
Yeah, I would like to focus on this because I know you help many directors to do their first movies. Could you tell us more about it?
I think there are a lot of talents out there. Since this few years I've been working in China, a lot of really talented young people out there, but they don't have the opportunity to break into the film industry. So I think one of my duties is to help them. Like writer, whether they're writer or director. Actors is a little bit tough, because people say, "Oh, you don't carry the film," or blah blah blah. But a writer or director certainly, I've been trying to groom several of them.
And could you tell us, about one movie or a specific one movie you're gonna?
Last year, I executive produced 2 films that are directed by first-time directors. One is a tiny little film about a boy growing up, 10-year-old boy. One summer, after the events in one summer, he suddenly grew up, and it's called End of Summer. Was shot like less than $1 million. It's very inexpensive. It's very, very nice. It's just finished. It's just finishing its post-production. The other one is a thriller. It's a more high-budget thriller. Also, it is written by a very famous writer. But this is his directorial debut, and it's shot in the northern part of China, freezing cold. It's called Savages. Both films are, I agree to help them because I've read the scripts and they're really, really good.
What's the market you goal, firstly, for these 2 movies? It's, the Chinese market first? For End of Summer, I think because it's not a commercial film, and so I think the producer is getting help from foreign sales company in Europe, and they're gonna package the film and maybe send it to film festival first. This is your first goal, to board the film on festivals.
Savage is a commercial film. I think will open very big.
To conclude, what could be your recommendation for people here who want to collaborate on Chinese projects and step into this market? And what do you suggest for Chinese filmmakers, because a lot of Chinese filmmakers there, who want to come to Hollywood?
I think it's very hard to find a story that works both ways. There are exceptions, like Kung Fu Panda works in both territories, but there's a rare exception. And so I think, first of all, we come across a story, you have to ask yourself, which is your main market? Is it China? Is it the US? You have to, whether the producers from Hollywood or from China, doesn't matter. You have to focus on the story and identify the main market for the story. and then you go from there, you know, and you put all the elements together, and you know, like American producers, they sometimes think, okay, the Chinese people think a certain way. Don't assume that, you know, just tell a good story. You know, Chinese audience would go to see an American film, you know, whether they have Chinese elements in it or not.
Thank you very much, Terence, for all your reply and for sharing your great experience with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Romy.
You're welcome. And looking forward to our next meeting here at the Millennium Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Thank you for watching Hollywood Meets China. I am Romy. See you next time.